Okay, now that I have my mirepoix cut up and ready to go, I now have my mise en place here with every ingredient that I'm going to need to make this stew. Now with this stew, it can be vegetarian, but because I'm making it tonight for the family, I'm actually adding some meatballs that I previously made towards the end. But let's start with frying up our carrots, onions, and celery here. I have set up here 4 potatoes, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, some pepper, 2 cups of peas, and about 2 cups of spinach, fresh spinach. So we're going to start by putting on our heat. Again, I have a gas stove, so mine gets hot pretty quickly. I also have here my beef stock that I will be adding to my stew. Now, in order to make this vegetarian, you would just have to omit the meatballs. I will add that towards the end anyways. So while this is heating up, we're going to add the 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Perfect. We're going to wait for that to get a bit warm. We are going to add our celery, our onion, and our carrots. Let me bring the camera a little closer here. Using my wooden spoon, I'm just going to turn this a little bit so nothing's sticking, nothing's burning. You can hear it sizzling. I love the smell of fried onions. It's probably my favorite thing. Okay, so you're going to cook this until the onions are translucent. Not brown, not caramelized, just translucent. Once it's translucent, I'm going to add the peas and the potatoes. Make sure you're constantly stirring so nothing is sticking. Okay, now the onions are nice and translucent. The smell, the aroma is unbelievable. To this, we're going to add our frozen peas. Make sure you're pouring away from you so that it doesn't splatter on you. Sorry, my dog is going crazy right now. Okay, so we've got the peas in there. We're going to let it saute for just a little bit. Probably about a minute or so. Making sure to stir all the way around. Now to this, I'm going to add the potatoes, the 4 potatoes. Again, when you put it in away from your body. And we're going to saute that for probably about another 2 minutes. Make sure it's all mixed and combined. This is a very, very hearty soup or stew, you could call it, just because I'm adding the meatballs to this. It's good for vegetarians. They can do vegan meatballs if they want. Okay, so we'll give that a minute. Okay, now we're going to add our 2 cups of beef stock. And we're going to give that a stir. I'm going to let this simmer for about 25 minutes. At that point, I will be adding my meatballs. However, if you are, again, like I said, doing a vegetarian option, at that point, at the very, very end, you can add your spinach. So I have a step in between with the meatballs because I want them to cook right through. So let this simmer for about 20 to 25 minutes and then I will be adding the meatballs. So now to this dish, as you noticed, I didn't add any salt. I didn't add any salt because the beef stock I find can be a little bit salty. So for this one, we're just gonna add a little bit of pepper. So about a tablespoon of pepper. We like it a bit spicy too. Give that a stir. If someone needs to add salt after, they can. That's not a big problem. We just don't like too much salt. The meatballs actually have some salt in them. How I made the meatballs was I used 3 types of meat. I used pork, I used veal, and I used beef. I did my own breadcrumbs using fresh bread that I soaked in milk, parsley, garlic, tons and tons of cheese, and then I fried them. I didn't fry them all the way just because I know they're going to cook into the soup here. Okay, so at this point, the potatoes are almost done. I'm going to be adding the meatballs. Again, you can omit this. Another great option is maybe some brown rice or some what I call pastina. But I'm going to be putting my meatballs. Now, I'm not dumping the whole bowl in because if I were to dump the whole bowl in, everything's going to splash everywhere. So I'm just going to grab each meatball one by one and lightly put it into the pot. Using a tongue, had it in my bowl, all done. Again, we're going to give this a stir. And we're going to cook this for probably about another 15 minutes. 15 to 20 minutes until that I know that the meatballs inside are, just because I took them out frozen, but if you're making fresh meatballs, you're okay. So I just have to keep this in a little bit longer just because they are from the freezer. I make my meatballs in big batches and then I freeze them. Makes it easier for sugo Sundays is what I call it. Okay, the potatoes are nice and soft. Not too soft where they're mushy, but just enough where they have a bit of a bite. Now at this part, I'm going to add my fresh spinach. The spinach cooks very, very fast. So that's why I like to put it in towards the end because it'll give it a very nice bite. So you're going to incorporate that in there. You're going to kind of have to maybe press it down just a little bit. Just make sure we watch the meatballs. I'm actually going to correct myself on something here. If you truly want to make this dish vegetarian, instead of beef stock, you can use vegetable stock. Probably should have said that in the beginning, but because I was making it with the meatballs, it was kind of an automatic. So turn this around. We're going to do it for about a minute. There we go. Let's plate this. So my kids love their meatballs, so I'm going to add a meatball to the bowl. Using my ladle, I'm going to scoop it up. Place into a bowl. We got to make sure it's very, very hot. Get some of that spinach. There's the carrots in there, the celery. Life is just so much simpler with the Mise en Place because it lays everything out for you. You don't forget the ingredients. There we go. Push this back a bit. For us, life is always better with a little bit of cheese, a little bit of parm just on top. Sometimes we like to add some tortellini to this, some cheese tortellini. Again, if you're vegetarian, you could do the meat tortellini, but you already have the meatball. So you can spruce it up any way you like. But here we go. This is using your all your vegetables and your mirepoix. It's time to eat. Cheers.